This is my video analysis of the short horror story The Boogeyman. It was written by Stephen King in 1978 and tells the story of the main character Lester Billings, who talks about how his 3 children were killed by the Boogeyman. I will be talking about the character Lester Billings, then I will go over the structure of the short story. Then I will have a discussion with the perspective to the horror genre, and in the end I'll come up with a short conclusion. So first of all, I used the Freudian theory to analyze this short horror story, and therefore I've divided the main character, Lester Billings, into 3 sub-characters. First of all, we have the Boogeyman, who represents the It, and I see this from the fact that Billings already knows how the Boogeyman looks like before even seeing him. Then we have Dr. Harper, who represents the superego of Lester Billings, and I see this from the fact that he is a psychiatrist, and that the whole story is at a psychiatrist's office. And then of course we have Lester Billings himself, and he is the ego. So first of all, Lester Billings has all of these childhood issues. He feels really insecure, he feels weak, he feels crippled, he feels like he cannot live up to the expectations that are on him. He feels that he can't live up to his own expectations also. He believes that this comes from his childhood, which we see in this excerpt. But you can't get overprotective. You make a kid crippled that way. When I was a kid, my mom used to take me to the beach and then scream herself hoarse. Even to watch out for sharks before God. I can't even go near the water now, page 37, line 9 through 14. So he really believes that the reason why he feels so weak and insecure is because his mother didn't raise him in a good way. And therefore he tries to raise his own children being more tough and harden them more. Yeah. Then he has this hate towards Rita, which we hear about different places in the story. We hear that his mother has cut all ties between her and his family because she doesn't like Rita, and she believes that she became pregnant on purpose. And even though Lester Billings tries not to believe what she's saying, he really does anyways. We see it in this excerpt. I think it was more than an accident. Children tie a man down, page 35, line 19 through 21. So he also believes that that Rita got pregnant on purpose, and he feels he is mad about it. He feels tied down. He feels tied down by her and by the children also. And of course this really complicates his relationship with his children because they symbolize all that is bad in his life, basically. Yeah, so therefore I believe that he kills his children himself, and I believe he does it because he wants revenge over Rita. Yeah, and I see it in this excerpt. In this story, this woman drowned her husband, put cement blocks on his feet and dropped him into her quarry. He came back and killed her, page 40, line 1 through 5. And this is an excerpt from a comic book that is put into the story. And I believe this would be a parallel story to the horror story. Billings also feels tied down as this man does. He feels it, this is literally, but he feels tied down, Billings does. And he feels that Rita has basically taken his life because she has tied him down, has made him drop out of college, etc. And therefore he comes back and he gets revenge by killing the 3 children, which he knows that Rita loves the most of all. The structure of the short story starts with the opening, where we hear that Lester Billings killed his own children, and it piques our interest. Then we have the presentation of the different characters, we have the development, and then we have the point of no return, which I believe to be just right before the death of Cheryl. Lester goes in and Cheryl is talking about the boogeyman in the closet, and he says this. How could I go to Rita and admit I was wrong? I had to be strong. Page 37, line 27 through 28. Because he realizes that something is wrong, and that it was wrong of him to put her in Danny's old room. And I believe that at this point in the story, he has a chance to come clean and tell Rita what has really happened to Danny and change his ways, but he chooses not to because he wants to seem strong and independent and in control. Then after that, we have the build-up where Billings becomes more and more afraid of the boogeyman. It becomes more and more powerful. Then we have the climax where Billings finally sees the boogeyman and the third child, Andy, is killed. Then we have the closing where we see the boogeyman in Dr. Harper's office and the it has finally taken over the superego. The perspective to the horror genre. So, first of all, we have Schubert's typology. In this story, we have an evil part. It is the boogeyman, of course, but it is also Lester Billings himself because he is the boogeyman. Then we have the loss, which is the loss of the children, but also the loss of control that Billings is experiencing. He is struggling between staying in control and being controlled. He is struggling between the sanity and insanity throughout the text. And then the story is intended to be scary most of all because it has a lot of terror in it, and that leads me to talk about King's horror typology. King believes that terror is the most hard way to make a horror story is by using terror, but it is also the most scary way, and he uses a lot of terror in this story. One example is this one. Something about the house changed. I started keeping my boots in the hall because I didn't like to open the closet door anymore. Page 41, line 35 through 36. So here, Billings is afraid of something, but he really don't know what it is, and we don't know what it is either. And therefore, or at least we haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen the boogeyman. So we become afraid of something we really don't know why we're afraid of. King also uses some horror in the story when we see the boogeyman, and a little bit of gross out when we see the death of the children. The subgenre of the short story is psychological, and this is mostly because I've used the Freudian theory to analyze the short story, or the horror story. Then we have Thoderov's theories. The story starts out being fantastic, but then at some point it becomes uncanny, and I believe that becomes uncanny when Billings is saying, but Rita finally knew ... And I believe that he means that she finally knew that he killed the 3 children, and that is why she divorced him. So I believe that this is the time in the story where we believe that Billings is actually the one killing the children, and therefore it is uncanny. Then I've looked a little bit on the short story The Black Cat, which was also written by Stephen King, and it is also a horror story. And in this story, the main character also experiences this internal struggle, trying to stay sane, trying to stay in control, which Billings is also experiencing. And also we have the black cat as a symbol of the evil and the it, and in the horror story the boogeyman represents the evil and the it. So for my conclusion, this story is mostly a horror story made up of terror. It talks about the man and the fall of his mind. It talks about the struggle between sanity and insanity, and about control. Thank you.